All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. We're glad to be here. We haven't felt like we've done this for a long time, huh, Kate?
Feels like weeks, but well, maybe it has been.
I know, right? Yeah.
Maybe it actually has been 2 weeks, but
yeah,
we're so happy to be here on this beautiful Friday with you guys.
I know. Beautiful day here in Southern California.
And it's
happy
fall.
to be here. And it's fall. It's your
the
favorite
other
day.
Four-letter F word.
That's right. It's the other four-letter.
My favorite.
So this is episode 397. Is that right?
You got it.
See if I get this right. I'm doing about 6 million things here.
We are at 397.
Yeah, 397 of Extreme Health Radio, and we're happy that you guys are here. We broadcast every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And if you want to join us in the live chat room, you can do that, make some friends, and talk with us and ask your questions to our guest at extremehealthradio.com/live at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And let's see. I want to thank all you guys, the patrons, people who have donated to us via Patreon. And I want to thank all of you guys who have bookmarked and used our Amazon link. We really appreciate that a lot. A lot of people have been doing that lately, and that's a great way to support the show. So we want to thank you guys for that.
And the holidays are coming up.
That's true.
So keep us in mind. Please tell your friends and family. Keeps us doing what we do.
Yes, definitely. It keeps us doing what we're doing, and it's a great way to support us. Easy way to do that if you just bookmark our link. And I would also want to let you guys know about our newsletter, too. If you want to join us, you can do that by texting the word Get Healthy to 33444. And if you do that, amazing things will happen.
You'll come cook people dinner.
That's right.
Just kidding.
That's right.
That's not a real promise.
That's not a real promise. But actually, you'll be signed up to a newsletter. You'll stay up to date with all of our shows, our past shows, our upcoming shows, all kinds of really cool things that are going on our newsletter, too. We give away some really great bonuses just for signing up. So if you guys would like to do that, you can do that by texting the word Get Healthy to 33444. And today we have Dr. Stephen Hines on the show. I'm really excited about that. He runs a clinic in San Angelo, Texas called Hope Wellness Center, where they don't heal people with chronic degenerative diseases, because we can't say that in America. Land of the free, home of the brave. We can't say that. So what he does is he helps the people get their bodies healthy.
Oh.
Yeah. Keep Uncle Sam, away from the clinic. But he's a naturopathic doctor, a naturopathic endocrinologist, a master herbalist. He's been practicing for, it says here in his bio, 15 years, but I'm thinking he's been practicing for a lot longer than that. He's writing a book right now, and he just came out with a DVD series. The book, I think, is called Gastrointestinal Diseases. He also co-authored The Road to Health. He has about 12,000 hours of research and working with patients down there in Mexico. He's got a clinic in San Angelo, Texas, and then you actually go for the treatment in Mexico. So it's really going to be cool. We're going to talk about all kinds of good things today. Gut health, gastrointestinal health, Lyme disease, chronic degenerative diseases, all kinds of good stuff like that. So it's an honor to have Dr. Stephen Hines on for the third time. So we thank you, Doc, for being on the show today. How are you doing?
Good. Is this just our third time?
Yeah, we've only done it 3 times. Isn't that crazy?
What is up with that?
I know. Something's wrong with that, right?
Man, seems like forever.
I know, right? So how have you been?
I've been finer than Frog's hair.
Really? I like to hear that.
Yes. Have you ever seen Frog's hair?
I was going to say, is that really a...
That's pretty fine. You can't put that in a ponytail,
very fine.
can you?
You can't even see it.
Oh, man. So things have been going well with you in your clinic?
Yes. Yeah, we've had a lot of sick folks lately. Unfortunately, more cancer patients than anything else. We really enjoy the Lyme cases and the MS and Parkinson's and dementia and congestive heart failure, because those don't require a lot of thought. But our cancer patients, most of them we get have already been, they're on hospice. They're very, very, very end stage, and unfortunately we lose too many of them. But it's kind of a ridiculous thing that we try to do anyway. But if we ever get a stage 1 or 2 cancer patient, we're just like, wow.
Really?
The flu, that's great. But,
yeah, people don't typically. People typically, don't they go through the medical sort of route, the traditional route first, and then they come see you to try to save the day at the very end?
Yeah, which is is almost an effort and futility in some cases, a lot of cases. But, we just promise them that we'll give them a better quality of life and generally can get them out of pain, get their heart working better, get some energy. And, we usually get them, a longer, higher quality of life. But when they're on hospice and they fail chemo, radiation, surgery, stem cells, they've been on morphine 6 months, we'll be lucky to remit 20% of those. But the rest of them, generally, we can get them out of pain and get some energy. And that's a big thing. I had a patient one time that a very famous actor, his lady that was his administrator, she was way, 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 way advanced with breast cancer metastasized to the brain. And the family called and asked us if we could do anything. And I said, really, maybe get her feeling a little bit better. But, it's huge. It's massive brain tumor. And so we saw her for a couple of weeks. We got her weaned off of morphine. And, my goodness, she started walking around and talking normal. And I thought, wow, she might dodge the bullet. But 2 weeks later, she succumbed. And I got a letter from the family, which I figured, I'm going to get a butt chewing here, And actually, it was so memorable because I guess there had been a family riff, and this lady hadn't talked to her family in years. And the title of the letter was, "What is 2 weeks worth?" And it went on to say that, thank you. You just can't imagine. We had 2 weeks with our daughter. She was cognitive. She wasn't in pain. We played cards. We played board games. We apologized for our selfishness and arguing. And it was just such a powerful thing for them to have these 2 weeks to get the scores settled and all the apologies and a clean spirit and a clean heart. And I've never forgotten that because, if I had 2 more weeks with my dad, I'd sell everything I've got. I'd give everything I could for 2 weeks. Really, I would. I just, it's a big deal. And so we don't want to lead people astray. There's a certain point where all we can do is just make them feel better and get them off the morphine usually and get them out of the bone pain, which we're quite good at. But unfortunately, I don't know anybody that does much better. But we love to have MS and Parkinson's and gut problems and lupus, because we have like 95% success on lupus and fibromyalgia, probably 80%. And we even love emphysema.
Really?
We have tremendous success on emphysema.
You're not going to hear that too often.
No, everybody runs from them. And we advertise for them. Come on down,
Really? So what's going on with emphysema? Is that just, my mom had a little bit of that at one point. She was a smoker for many years. Is that when the lungs sort of calcify and become hard?
Well, not really. What it is that let me get my, you hear a bunch of clicking noise.
Yeah, no worries.
A second here. My glasses got in the way here.
No
so what we found many years ago, we had a friend of mine called and he said, my father-in-law has got really bad emphysema. He can't even walk 10 feet without can't even, go 10 feet without falling down. And he said, is there anything you can do? And I said, well, dude, man, I don't know a thing about emphysema, but send him over. I'll see what I can find. So I found some old literature from oxidative medical meeting from like 10 years earlier. And they're just talking about giving IV hydrogen peroxide. And so we gave the guy IV peroxide, and he went back across the border, and he hadn't even got through the border check stand when he started feeling better.
Wow.
So then he called back and he said, can I do that again tomorrow? And I said, yeah, sure. So He came over about 3 days a week for about a month, and he just felt better and better. And then all of a sudden, he starts coughing up what looked like road tar.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh.
And I had this epiphany. I mean, this guy smoked 3 or 4 packs of Camels for 45 years. And so I put it like this. Think of a screen door at your house, and normally you've got airflow through it, and it doesn't allow mosquitoes and flies to get in your house, right? Mm-hmm. But if you painted it, you slap paint all over those screens, you're going to occlude the surface area and the ability of oxygen to be moved across the lungs and into the bloodstream. Mm. So I've realized that what happened is that the tar from all the cigarettes has accumulated in the lungs, and that's part of what gives the X-ray a black look. You can't get much radiation through it because there's so much tar.
Right.
And this guy for 3 months, he coughed up road tar, and then one day he just quit, and he was a new man. And so I thought, wow, this is supposed to be incurable. So he referred another lady to us who was way worse than him. Mm. And so I started doing some Medline searches, and I found out that a lot of these people have a infection in their lungs. And one of the most common infections is chlamydia pneumoniae. And I have a dear friend in Albuquerque who is the chlamydia pneumoniae maniac of the planet. This guy has hundreds of patients, I'm presuming, after years of doing this, that taking a low dose of Zithromax every day for years. And he himself has taken Zithromax every day since the antibiotic came out 20 years ago.
Now, what is Zithromax? What is that?
Azithromycin, and it's very cool. I'm a naturopath, and I think I'm talking about this cool antibiotic, right? Well, the thing is, most antibiotics work by attacking cell membranes. Well, it attacks all cell membranes, not just the bacteria, and so it just really damages the membranes of the body's cells. But Zithromax is an intracellular antibiotic, extremely long half-life. In fact, a study showed that a Z-Pak taken today, 9 months later, you could still find the Zithromax in the white blood cells. So because chlamydia pneumoniae is an intracellular bug, mm-hmm. all your cell membrane antibiotics just don't work. So you end up with, back in my era, and I'm way older than you guys. I think, what am I, 57 now? Back in the old days, if you got chlamydia pneumoniae pneumonia, they would give you penicillin or ampicillin or amoxicillin, mm-hmm. which are extracellular effects. So what would happen is the chlamydia pneumoniae would hide out inside your lung cells, and you get a chronic low grade all the time, 24 hours a day for years and years and years. And so Zithromax is wonderful for knocking out chlamydia pneumoniae. And so when we have somebody come to Mexico with emphysema or COPD or bronchiectasis or cystic fibrosis, any of the lung issues, right, we will do an EKG, make sure that they don't have extended Q wave intervals, because azithromycin does extend or can extend Q wave intervals, which is not a problem if you don't already have that problem. Okay. So when we do it intravenously, and we also found years ago that there was a study in Great Britain, it was in the British Journal of Medicine, that 20% or so of people that have dementia have chlamydia in their brain. So we found that you have to do it IV to really get that kind of penetration, to get in the brain and to really knock out these deep tissue infections. But, my partner and I discussed it, and we said, let's give him Zithromax IV. Well, all of a sudden, 2-3 days later, they're going, wow, I'm breathing again, like I haven't breathed this well in years, Oh. And then over the years, I found out that when I was studying parasitology, Dr. Omar Amin in Phoenix area is a top-notch parasitologist. And
yeah, we know about him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah. And he was telling me, I think was where I first learned this, that your Ascaris worms or hookworms, which is a very common little bitty parasite, part of their life cycle is they migrate through the lungs.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of a bizarre thing. It's just normal. That's the way they live. And when they crawl up into the lungs, they pop their little heads out and look around and go, wow, we're in the lungs.
Oh.
And then they make you cough, and you cough up the sputum, and it has these little worms in it, and they get down into your gut, and they burrow a hole in the gut, and then they start replicating, and that's their migratory pattern. So we started using systemic parasite agents, and all of a sudden they got even better, and then we learned out that the most concentrated place for glutathione in the human body are a couple of places. One is your lung surfactant. So if you can imagine, how if you take your finger and touch the inside of your mouth, you feel that wet mucosal lining of the mouth. Imagine how you go for 3 days with no water.
Yeah.
And it gets all dried out and cracked. Now imagine that's your lungs. Think about it. They've been smoking dry, hot air 20 times a day for 30 or 40 years. It dries out the lungs, and it is loaded with formaldehyde and fungal toxins and all kind of cadmium, and so it wastes the glutathione that protects your lungs. So we started doing nebulized glutathione, and lo and behold, a few days later they go, wow, I can breathe even better. It's kind of like Sarah Palin. Wow, you can see Russia from my front porch.
Yeah, that's amazing.
By the way, I love Sarah Palin. I'm just kidding. I'd vote for her in a minute. You show me another governor that sold the Learjet just to save some money,
That's hilarious. Wow. So now people with these issues, glutathione seems to be helping really well. Are there any other substances that you would nebulize for that issue as well?
Yeah. Sometimes we nebulize Argentin 23 silver, which manufacturers cannot say that.
How do you say that again?
Argentin?
Argentin 23.
Argentin 23.
It's an extremely pure, really wonderful silver, colloidal silver preparation. Very clean.
Interesting.
And so we sometimes, if we don't know what infection may be in the lung, we'll have people take a little of that in a nebulizer and breathe it in, and that can be very helpful. And then most of your pulmonary problems have also a lung full of yeast, maybe Aspergillus or Candida, and so we give them systemic antifungals, and then after a few days they go, wow, I can breathe even better.
Wow. You know what are beets? I've heard marathon runners take beet juice and things like that to increase cardiovascular and lung function.
Wonderful. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, I went on a fresh beet juice kick, and I took 2 real big beets and I ran them through my juicer. And one little thing I'll tell you just in general, if you want to make juice last longer, put it in little glass jars, fill it all the way to the very top, and cap it and seal it. So if they get oxygen, they start oxidizing and they taste bad. You can make it last really 3 days if you have a squeezer, not a basket type juicer, but the hydraulic worm gear type juicers. And you got to really dilute it though. I mean, it'll rip your tongue off. So I diluted about 6 or 8 waters to the amount of beet juice. And it's loaded with dimethylglycine, and the purple pigment is proanthocyanidins, lots of magnesium, great for the kidneys and wonderful for the liver. And I could take a 6 or 8 ounce glass of that diluted, and for an hour later, I'm like jumping over the tallest building without an S on and no cape.
No, minus the cape.
So wonderful stuff to clean up the liver, and dimethylglycine, it's essential to detoxify certain metabolic toxins, and particularly things like benzene, toluene, hexane, xylene, things like that. So wonderful stuff.
Have you heard of that guy that's running around? He was on our show a couple times. I think he may be in Texas, Dallas, as Robert von Sarbacher. He does the mini beet protocol. Have you heard about that thing?
Well, I know of a company in Austin that makes a nitric oxide inducing product that is loaded with beet juice but they found an alternative pathway to production of nitric oxide, which one of my interventional cardiology friends in Lubbock, Texas, it's nitric oxide is his favorite thing, and he'll say, nitric oxide, it's the most healing chemical in the human body. And it's pretty funny. So we've used that product, but we also use the arginine, citrulline products together, because arginine is the more common pathway to nitric oxide production. But if you just take arginine alone, you get a real big peak of nitric oxide for just a short time, and then it's gone. Okay. But if you'll add citrulline with it, citrulline is a rate-limiting amino acid in the synthesis of nitric oxide. So it kind of slow burns. It makes the arginine slowly release nitric oxide over 6 or 8 hours. So if you dose it twice a day, you can really heal up the cardiovascular system.
Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that what's going on with what are those drugs like the Viagra and the Cialis?
Cialis, yeah. That's what they do, is they create nitric oxide, but they do it in a rather uncontrolled fashion.
Okay.
Is that really dangerous?
Oh, there's definitely side effects. I mean, some people just pass out driving their car and wreck their car. It's a reason that it causes erection, because it's vasodilating, and you can vasodilate too much, and that's why a lot of men say they don't like it, because their head gets all hot and they get weak feeling and they kind of get loopy, and because you're kind of forcing something to happen that they're not really physically able safely to do, because there's a reason that they can't have an erection, is that they've got poor vascular system, atherosclerosis, poor cardiac function. So I'm not in favor of those things at all.
A friend of yours and a guest on our show, Dr. Massey, I heard him saying one time, if nature is trying to prevent, a man from getting an erection and from having sex, it sort of goes beyond what we should be thinking, because you're sort of artificially changing the way nature is, and really you should be trying to figure out why that's happening, rather than just take something to make yourself be able to do it. It's not good from that perspective. You're going to
kill yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you'll die with a smile on your face, but it will be the last smile you ever have.
That's true. That's true. Oh man.
I wanted to tell you guys, I was I don't know. Did you get the DVD set that I sent you?
You know what? We got it. We were so excited, and then we were.
We had a movie night planned.
We had a movie night planned, and we're going to watch it because for those who don't know, this 2-disc DVDs that Dr. Hines has at hopewellness.com are 8 hours long, and we were super excited, but. When we put them into our DVD player, it wouldn't recognize it, and so then
it's got to be Blu-ray player because they're Blu-ray disc. And we debated about this because actually it's 12 hours long.
Oh my goodness!
And when we talked to our film people, they said, "Well, we want to film this in high definition, so we can do all the digital stuff and download on Vimeo and." Do Blu-ray, high def. Like who cares if you got a high def lecture, but we, and they told me that Blu-ray was a coming thing, and at least if you have a Blu-ray player, you can play old style DVDs and Blu-rays, but you can't go the other way. So if we did it with DVDs, then everybody's switching to Blu-ray, then they couldn't play our deal. So it's a little, it's causing a lot of people to go and up the ante and go to Walmart and buy a $40 Blu-ray player. But it's I for years I just had this thing gnawing on me that I've spent 25 years studying like a maniac, and my partner and I are clinical nightmares. I mean, we're like the inquiring minds. We've got to know. And I've been to every medical conference on the planet, Dubai and Frankfurt, Germany, and Vancouver, and, everywhere, Korea, studying stem cells. And I've amassed so much clinical data that any one little part of it is going to save somebody's life, but a doctor wouldn't know it unless he happened to go with me and wrote all these things down and did them in clinic. And, my partner in Mexico is a conventional medical doctor, and I'm totally the opposite. I'm traditional naturopath. And so we butted heads for years in a good way, and I've taught him my thinking, and he taught me his thinking, and we kind of realized that the safe place is in the middle. And so we use drugs, we use herbs, we use ozone, we use peroxide, we use ultraviolet, we use any tool that is do no harm with the biggest bang for the buck. And I just plagued me that I could have a car wreck one day and all this information is gone. And so I said, okay, I've got to do this thing because, I'm on the phone all day long with doctors calling from all over the world saying, how in the world do you reverse congestive heart failure? And I'll go through 2 hours of here's how you do it, and this is what you check, and give them thiamine shots, and you got to give them magic drips, and you got to change their diet, and you got to give them CoQ10 and alpha-lipoic acid and ribose, and then they'll call me the next day and say, could you tell me all that again? I can't remember. I wasn't writing it down. I thought, really? 2 hours of my time and you didn't write it down? So I finally decided, rather than repeating this over and over and over, I'm just going to do this big conference. And I think I did 8 hours of it. And then you guys know Sheila Hemphill, the electromagnetic field maniac of the world. She
was on our show. She's so great.
She's the smart meter queen. She and her son did a talk on EMFs, and it's scary, man. It's really scary.
Is that talk on the DVD?
Yes, everything's on there.
We know what we're doing today. Going to Walmart.
I know, right?
I brought on 3 of the best biological dentists that I know, and they showed cavitations and root canals and infected abscesses and some, showing before and after. Someone was in congestive heart failure. They pulled out the root canal teeth, and all of a sudden their heart starts getting better. Or Parkinson's cases. I think in the last 15 years we've probably seen over 20 Parkinson's patients that either got totally well or partially well or much better just by opening up their upper left and upper right wisdom tooth sockets and cleaning out the pus out of those pockets, because those endotoxins are conducted up the trigeminal nerve into the substantia nigra in the brain, which poisons energy production and messes up their dopamine levels. And so I got 3 dentists on there, wonderful presentations, and Dr. Michael Jackson, ironically, Michael Jackson,
not D,
makes me want to do the moonwalk.
I know, right?
He sent me his wonderful PowerPoints, and I gleaned a lot off of that. And these guys did their part. And then we had Dr. Donald Dennis, who is an ear, nose, and throat doctor in Atlanta. He is just absolutely scary, amazing what he has taught me over the last 4 years about mold toxins and how do you find out if the patient's got mold growing in their sinuses and what does it do to them. It wipes out their pituitary gland and their growth hormones and your thyroid and can cause dementia and ALS and cognitive dysfunction of all sorts. And he did an hour. I mean, I'm saying he spoke for an hour.
He spoke for an hour.
But when you watch the video, it'll take you 10 hours just to get it all. I mean, it's just massive.
Wow.
And the mold thing was such a difficult thing for me to nail down. I knew about it, but nobody could tell me, how do you test for it? How do you test your home, your office, your car? And he has videos on there where a guy comes in, trembling, shaking, falling down against the wall, ataxia, obviously central nervous system involvement. He goes up into his sinuses and sees he's got mold growing in there, got polyps growing in there. And by the way, if you have a polyp in your sinuses, you have aspergillus. 95% of the time, aspergillus fungus is growing in your nose, and you basically are making a mushroom in your sinuses. And so you got this little tumor in there producing mold toxins 24 hours a day. It's like you're allergic to dogs and you're sleeping with a dachshund on your nose all night long and wonder why you can't breathe. And so he taught me this and beat on me. I said, well, how do we get well? He said, you get them out of their moldy environment. Mm-hmm. And I'm serious. He will tell you, leave the house naked. Get in your car with the windows down, because even your car is full of mold fungus, because if it's in your living environment, those mold toxins are being absorbed in your upholstery, in your clothes, in the carpet. They're in the air handling unit. They're behind the walls. And he said, you got to leave. You got to get out of the moldy environment. And he has people literally go and camp out on the beach.
For how long? I mean, are we talking like people can't go back to these situations, or you heal up and you're able to...
It depends on the severity. We tend to be much more modulated. I say get into a mold-free environment, which sometimes you can find a place on the beach, maybe a condo you can rent that's no carpet, all tile, leave the windows open, because the air coming off of the ocean is mold-free.
Really?
Is that right?
And so I have people who come to Mexico and we're not sure really, is it Lyme disease, is it root canal teeth, is it their hormones, what is it? Mm-hmm. And after reasonably assessing them, if I suspect mold, I will just say, look, go rent a camper or get your tent, go to the beach and stay there a week, literally camping on the beach, and tell me if in 3 or 4 days you become a new person. And I can't tell you how many times. It happened 2 days ago. Lady, terribly ill right now. Her kids are recurrent lung problems, sinus problems, they can't pay attention in school, husband's ill. And I say, look, go to the beach. And she said, we did like a month ago. We went to the beach and it was amazing because just being there a week, all my symptoms were gone. And I said, so you prove my point. You're in a mold-free environment. Therefore, you're not flaring those antibodies and you're not absorbing more mold toxins from your environment. If you're sleeping in a house riddled with mold, it's killing you. You've got to get out of that environment and, take your swimsuit and a T-shirt or leave naked and go buy a new one at the Walmart when you get to the beach. But hope that you don't get stopped by the DPS on the way.
I know,
right?
Excuse me, ma'am, are you aware that you're naked? Yes, I have a prescription.
Right.
Oh, man.
I have a prescription for nakedness. So what happens after folks go do that? I mean, are they able to return back home, or what happens? Does everything get thrown upside down?
First of all, we just have to prove the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no, you improve radically by being away from your environment. Mm-hmm. If they do, we have them contact immunolytics, which is, by the way, everything I'm telling you is in this 12 hours of video, including which phone numbers to call, how do you test, which labs to use, which code number for the lab. We did this for physicians and nurse practitioners and chiropractors and naturopathic physicians to have resources. So instead of just saying, test your house for mold. Well, you know how long it took me to find out how to test your house for mold?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? We did that, Doc, a while back, and we found just a regular Petri dish, right, Kate, with from the regular hardware store. But are there special, is there special testing people should do?
Yeah, if you go to immunolytics, IMUNOLYTICS, I believe, immunolytics.com. Click on Order Now, and it'll give you an option. They have a 1 mold test plate, a 2 plate, and a 5 plate. Get a 5 mold plate test kit. Get them. When you get them, you're going to open them up. Put one outside on your picnic table outdoors. That's your control. And then put the others anywhere you suspect mold in the house. Put one in your bedroom. Put one under the kitchen sink. Open the door where your air handling unit is. Put them in there for an hour. Take the lid off. Leave the air conditioner off. And an hour later, you put the lid back on. Take Scotch tape. Seal them. And with a magic marker, mark on it which room it came from, or if it was your outdoor control. And you want the one that has interpretation. So when you send it back to the lab in Albuquerque, they're going to finish letting it culture out for probably 4 or 5 days. And then they will identify for you the molds, and they'll quantify. So we're always going to grow mold. Most of it's just ubiquitous to the, in the air where you live. But what we're looking for is aspergillus and black mold and molds that create ochratoxins. And then it will tell you, okay, the bedroom is rolling tile with huge amounts of black mold. So then at least you can isolate the room and start looking around and think, well, we had a tornado, ripped the roof off on that side, and it's probably growing inside the wall. Very common.
So that's with the black mold. So certain molds are, not necessarily okay, but certain ones are really dangerous then. Yeah.
And once you become one of the worst kind of cases where you're no longer just reacting to the black mold, you're now hyper reactive to all molds. And that's why some people will not get better unless they have a 0 mold environment long enough for those antibodies to downregulate and to detoxify the mold toxins that already accumulated in their body.
So you saying that would be better for people to not have carpeting and not have places in their area?
Absolutely.
It would.
Absolutely. Get rid of every bit of carpet in your house.
Wow.
Because it's a mold magnet. Every time you walk on it, you're stirring it up, and it's just absorbing all those mycotoxins. And not to mention that, I mean, just dog hairs and cat hairs and dander, and you want a clean environment as much as possible because it's such a big deal.
Yeah, for
and
those
I've had people that just as soon as they got the carpet out of their house and did a good cleaning, they go, "Wow, I feel so much better."
That makes a lot of sense because there's a gentleman that I'm sure you're aware of. You know everyone in this field, in this industry. Doug Kaufman from Cancer. Let's see, what is it? Cancer is a fungus or something like that?
Yeah, well, Cancer is a fungus is Dr.
Simoncini.
Simoncini, yeah. But he's been on Doug's show a lot, and Doug is the mold maniac on the planet, too. Doug, we spoke at a conference last year together, and, he teaches you what diet to eat so you starve the Candida out of your intestines. And, he's really good on the diet and different antifungals you can take. But that's a totally different issue than mold in the environment. And you have to address both of them because they're both toxic.
Okay.
So I'm just curious, as a kid, man, I had polyps and things like that, like you were mentioning with this aspergillus and the sinuses. Can those things, as far as I know, I don't have them anymore. Do those go away for people? Do you think I changed my environment?
Well, generally, they don't go away unless you make them go away. And what I have been doing is recommending people go to a dentist who has a cone beam scan, CONE, beam, BEAM, and have them shoot as high as they can so they catch the maxillary sinus. That's the most common place that you will grow these nodules. And it's a mushroom growing in your nose. Mm-hmm. And so recently I had a case that had chronic. Every time the barometric pressure would drop, this lady would have the headache from hell. And took a long time to figure this out, but I finally got her to get a cone beam, and her sinus was blocked like 90%. Wow. So I talked to Dr. Dennis, and he recommended amphotericin by nebulizer, which is a fungicidal pharmaceutical agent. You'd never want to take it IV.
Oh, man.
But by nasal, it's pretty easily tolerated. And they put a little Decadron in it, a little bit of a steroid, because when those things die, those fungal toxins can cause you to get a little anaphylactic sometimes. So that takes the edge off the immune response. And then 30 days later, her years of sinus problems was 90% resolved. The polyp was 90% resolved. Her headaches were gone. And she was just obviously better. And so I, who had sinus problems most of my life, decided to do the same. So I went and got a cone beam. I had 100% blockage in my right sinus and about 75% in my left. So I have been on amphotericin. I use a nasal spray because it's hard for me to carry a nebulizer with me. Mm-hmm. And I retested myself at 2 weeks, and one of them is about 25% less. The 100% blockage is not changed yet, so I think I'm going to have to get the nebulizer because it makes it into a mist, and it kind of goes everywhere in there.
So do you think
that protocol works wonderfully well?
So do you think, Doc, there's any connection between that, when you talking about mushrooms and your sinuses, I think about the old Terrence McKenna who died of, who was a big guy, he was really into psychedelics and things, and he ended up dying of some kind of brain cancer, and he was really into mushrooms as well. And I wonder if is there any connection between this mold and brain cancer?
I don't think that, he was taking mushrooms for their psychedelic effect. Right. It's possible. I mean, maybe those mushrooms may have mycotoxins. Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, that's actually is a real possibility, but it's more likely that he had mold growing in his sinuses, because there's enough anecdotal reports, and there's also good science. There's a book that Doug Kaufman, I think, is referenced, and I have all three of the books. They're called The Garden of Eden, I think, is the name of the series, but it's all about fungal bionics. If you'll type in fungal bionics, like the Bionic Man, there's books on prostate cancer, breast cancer, other cancers, where they took the tumors and they assayed them for fungal toxins. And something like 90% of all glioblastomas and astrocytomas, brain tumors, they had ochre toxins or Stachybotrys aspergillus toxins in that tumor. And the same with breast and prostate. They're loaded with mold toxins.
So do we know, Doc, if these toxins are the actual cause or just a correlation? How do we know that?
Well, if you listen to Simoncini, and I can tell you that at our clinic in Mexico, we've had plenty of recurrent breast cancers, lung cancers, prostate cancers over the years, that because of meeting Simoncini and paying attention to, although I have to say, Simoncini thinks that all cancers are actually a fungal mass.
Right.
We do not agree entirely with that. We think that the fungus actually induce real malignant cells, but at the same time, there are many tumors that are nothing more than a fungal mass.
So he's saying that all, like the actual substance of the tumor itself is the fungal mass, but what you're saying is not, maybe not necessarily completely the case, but some of these could be caused by that.
Right, and so we have taken that to heart, and because you can't tell the difference. I mean, even we've begged and pleaded with pathologists for a dozen years when they do a tumor resection to stain it for fungus. And I've had oncologists who have ordered fungal stain in a dozen cases and never received the pathology back showing that. It's just like they refuse to do it. Like, are you an idiot? It's cancer. I'm the pathologist. You don't tell me what to do.
And they'll say that to you.
Oh, well, they don't say it. They just ignore you.
My goodness.
And so I finally found a pathologist who said she's happy to do it, and we're fixing to send some tumor tissue of a dear friend of mine. Got a thyroid thing going on, and we're going to get it tested for fungus and mycobacterium and other things, mycoplasma. But we have treated recurrent breast, prostate, and lung, those particularly I remember, with IV antifungals on numerous occasions, and the tumor went away.
Really?
Many times, yeah. And so because you don't know, and no pathologist is going to help you, you just have to treat them aggressively for fungus and, put them on an antifungal diet. And we've also seen it a few times with oral antifungals like voriconazole or itraconazole or diflucan. And Doug Kaufman uses a boatload of diflucan. That's sort of his favorite. The thing about diflucan and Sporanox or itraconazole versus something like voriconazole is actually fungicidal. diflucan, sporanox, nystatin, ketoconazole are fungistatic.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Means the difference is that the fungistatics don't directly kill fungus.
Okay.
They inhibit their replication, so you need a somewhat intact immune system to help get the job done. Well, these people are post-chemo, radiation, surgery. They're on morphine. They're a nightmare. So we have to use voriconazole, or there are some newer fungicidals that don't require much. They may need some, maybe 10% or 15% immune function, and they're much more effective. And they're also much, much more expensive.
So all those years that, I struggle with, urinary tract infections or yeast infection. I guess it would be a yeast infection that your OBGYN prescribes the fluconazole or whatever that is. That's not necessarily a bad thing then.
Oh, no, not at all.
Huh.
No, the thing about any drug is that they're fungal toxins themselves or bacterial toxins oftentimes. So we like to limit those things. There's many natural antifungals, and women that have recurrent vaginal yeast infections, all they really need to do is just get some White Mountain or Brown Cow, some real yogurt that's still got active cultures, bacterial cultures, and just take an ounce or two and get one of those little rubber ball syringes and just squirt it up inside the vagina at night and put a pad on and roll over a couple times so you kind of can cover the inner wall of the vagina. And, you'll recolonize the friendly bacteria, which then are lactobacillus acidophilus type cultures. So they produce an acid environment that inhibits fungal growth. I mean, you're going to grow fungus on every mucosal membrane in the human body if you rip off the friendly bacteria.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
And I believe this is why we have so much chronic sinusitis, is because a dozen years ago, I asked an ear, nose, and throat doctor, I said, what is the normal commensal flora of the nasopharyngeal membranes?
Standard question.
And the guy looked at me like I was an idiot. And he said, well, it's sterile. I said, well, how can that be? It's a mucous membrane. I mean, your oral cavity, the gut, the vagina has all got mucous membranes, and they carry friendly commensal flora. So I asked, a dozen other doctors over the years and some PhD guys and none of them never even thought of it. And so I finally found some German literature that showed that there are certain Clostridia strains that are normal commensal flora, and I think probably there's many others. And I've seen people that just took some bifidobacteria, they're in the health food store, open a capsule, put it in a little bit of saline in a nasal spray, and sprayed it in their sinuses a couple times a day, twice for 2 weeks, and their sinusitis went away.
Now that is a good idea.
And so why wouldn't it? You think about it, we take antibiotics and we know that we're going to kill off the vaginal flora and the gut flora, so we take friendly bacteria, right? Well, those antibiotics permeate anywhere there's blood, and so there's blood in the mucous membranes, and why wouldn't it wipe out the sinus flora? So I think any flora that you get up in there is probably a good idea. Don't quote me on that. I did not say that on radio.
Yes.
No quoting here.
Yes.
Go see your ear, nose, and throat doctor who has no clue that there is such a thing in your sinuses. And there is a little ebook out. I think it's called The Sinusitis Cure.
Oh, okay.
And they tell you how to do that. I just found that recently.
Oh, okay.
And it says right on there, you can't do this because the FDA says you can't.
Oh, my goodness.
But, I mean, if you're doing something educationally and you're not selling a product or a service, then there should not be an FDA problem, I don't think, because normally, it's freedom of speech. You can, educationally say these things are for educational purposes, which is what our video series is, all educational, and you need, of course, it was designed for practitioners who mostly have a license,
right.
But it's also for the layman, so they can say, hey, doc, I think I may have found something that might help me. Are you willing to filter this through your medical brain and see if it's appropriate for me? And, I have doctors call all the time that say, I'm dabbling in this integrative medical thing, and it's fascinating to me, but I'm lost. I got 100 books. They all say something different. And I don't know which supplement to give. I don't know which diet to give. Should they be ketogenic? Should it be juice fasting? Should they be on the grain-free? And they're just lost. And so that's why we made this educational video with book and page and chapter and manufacturer and product name and CPT code sometimes and which test to run and which lab to do it with and how to manage these, because, we spent 25 years and over $1 million learning, I will say it this way, what not to do.
Yeah.
So, years ago, I contacted a guy in Virginia, and I said, look, I'm looking at your website here, and I see you're doing heroic things, and I wonder, if I could come and do a preceptorship with you. And he said, he's like 85 years old. And he said, well, I'm really, really busy, and I really don't have time. And I said, well, do you have any books I can read? And he said, well, no, I really haven't had time. I said, you got any papers I can read? No, I've been really busy. And I said, how about some videos? Surely you've done lectures. Well, no, I'm really busy. And so I said, look, how many people do you think that you have inadvertently killed in your 40 years of medical practice? Well, more than I want to discuss. And I said, well, you've been at this 40 years. You're a highly decorated veteran. You're a pathologist. You're internal medicine. And you have killed X number of people. Here I am, a lowly traditional naturopath. I don't know, come here from Sikkim. How many people you think I'm going to kill because you don't want to tell me what you already know?
Wow.
And it got real quiet.
Yeah.
I bet.
He said, all right, come on up. So I went and I took my little tape recorder and, I took notes and writing this stuff, and I saw patients with him for a week. And I was so lost. It was way over my pay grade. And so I came back. It took me a year to look up all the words. And I did that a lot. I mean, I'd find a guy that's top of his class, in one area, in MS or Parkinson's or whatever, and I just go pull up a chair and start taking notes and then go put it into clinical practice with my partner. And we just figured, we got to write this down. We got to make educational videos so other practitioners don't have to waste all the time and money and patients' time and money. I mean, a lot of those people don't have time and they don't have money. And we kind of made the Reader's Digest condensed version. I said virgin. I meant version. Nix that on the audio. Where's the editor? Wrong word.
Wrong word. That's okay. That's an okay word.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Slurring my speech. I guess I'm killing too many mold toxins.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Catching up with me. But so that's kind of the point of the whole deal is and I'll tell you, when I got this done, it took a year to edit it.
Wow.
And when I finally got it out there, I can't tell you the weight it took off of my psyche, my brain. It's just like, okay, if I die tomorrow, I'm going to live on and still be able to affect physicians and nurse pracs and patients that I've never even met for years and years and years, you know.
Wow.
And we started getting some feedback now. People who actually finally bucked it up and went and bought a Blu-ray player.
I know.
We're going to be joining that crowd.
I know. I feel like we're behind the times
The
here.
Blu-ray tribe.
Yeah, Blu-ray. You know, and the thing is, it was going to take like 10 or more discs to do the conventional. We got it on 2 Blu-rays. So
Oh, I see. Okay.
I will tell you that we are working on with our film guy is pulling the audios off, and we're setting up a iTunes account and a Vimeo account. He's pulling the video down. It's going to take 6 weeks to download all the videos onto Vimeo. That's how much data there is. And that's doing it all day long, every day. But when people get the Blu-ray set, we'll get their email address, and as soon as the audios are ready, they can download them on their iPhone and listen on the train or listen on while they're driving to work or back. And if they're, you know, where they got a dangerous electromagnetic field inducing Wi-Fi, they can watch it on their computer.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Sheila Hemphill would love all this conversation.
She would not approve.
After you're done watching Sheila Hemphill, you go, kill the Wi-Fi.
Totally.
Oh, my gosh.
Out in the, I have a dear friend that just moved to Panama. He is 50 miles from the nearest cell phone tower.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh. He's got to feel so good. I would love that.
I'm my first opportunity, I'm going to go hang out with him.
I bet.
Literally, you leave his house, walk down the hill, onto the beach. And so I don't know how you couldn't get better. You know?
I know.
Right.
Sometimes just changing your environment, like you were talking about earlier with the, you know, camping on the beach, getting away from mold spores, or sometimes just going into a new place, I think is a step in the right direction, you know?
I have had some people who had broken water lines under their house that every time we tested their house, they had black mold. And they just couldn't figure out, how could this be? We've spent all this money tearing walls out, fixing the roof. Well, in the hill country of Texas, there's a serious problem because the clay soil, when it's real dry, it contracts. And then when they get rain, it expands. So what it does is it rips the pipes loose under the house, under the slab.
Oh, I see.
And one lady, finally, somebody that was really thinking, looked and they pulled the carpet up, or somehow they found the crack in the slab, and they literally jackhammered it up, and there was a cavern. A cavern 5 feet deep, 6 or 8 feet wide, and it was just coated with white mold. And the toxin produced by black mold is a bad hombre. It actually can be a gas, a vapor.
Oh.
And it can, if you put black mold in a Ziploc bag, the toxin will permeate through the plastic.
What the heck?
Is that right?
Yes, because I talked to a guy previously with the CDC. He's a mycologist, and I was asking him, how do you tell me the physiology, the toxicology of trichothecenes, which is the family of toxins produced by black mold. And I said, is it a particle? I mean, is it a chemical? What is it? And he said, well, it's the family of trichothecenes, plural, and some of it is a gas, and some of it's particles, and there are a lot of toxins that inhibit enzymes, and he said, think about it. You've got a mold growing in your sinuses, off-gassing a vapor, and he said, we all talk about the blood-brain barrier, but he said, what about the olfactory bulb? There's a hole in your skull where the olfactory nerves go through the nose, you know, if you look at a skull, you can see there's a place, it's just a tunnel go right into the brain. He said, forget the blood-brain barrier. It's irrelevant.
Really?
Mold toxins can go right into the brain. And when he explained that, I'm sitting here looking at my skeleton on my desk. I got a little guy here that looks like he's really malnourished.
He needs a few more Twinkies.
Yeah. I'm looking right through the, I can't remember what that canal is called, but it's where the nerves from the nose go right into the brain. And so forget the blood-brain barrier. These things don't care. They go right on in there. So it's a big, big thing. And I'm so happy to have Dr. Dennis on the video. And he shows videos of people who are stumbling down the hallway. He cleans out their sinuses, gets them out of their moldy environment. 3 months later, videos them again, walking, talking normally, not slurring their speech. And then he showed a video, which is in this series, where a guy gets into a moldy car.
Oh.
And within hours, he's reverted back to slurring his speech and stumbling.
Isn't that crazy?
It's profound. Absolutely profound. And so, since I have become a mold literate guy, I'll have to tell you a very large percentage of the patients that we see in Mexico that have been what we'll call marginal responders or no responders, that's it. That's the biggest thing we find. That makes a difference. And unfortunately, it can be extremely expensive to comply. And I have some people, I say, look, I know you can't afford $100,000 to fix your house, so what you need to do is go get you a toy hauler like we have. I had 2 campers, both of which were moldy. And I could tell. I go in there and my eyes would burn and my sinuses would burn. I got rid of them and bought a toy hauler. This particular one is very utilitarian. There's no carpet. There's no paneling. It's all non-mold material, and it's the way the roof is built is kind of like an Airstream trailer. They just can't leak. They're designed not to leak. And the back end of it opens up, and it's got a tailgate where you can drive your little motorcycle in there and go to the mountains. Well, I took it down to the beach with my grandson. Literally in Texas, there's a place where you can back your truck up 50 feet from the surf. I backed the camper up, let the tailgate down, no air conditioner. It's just literally the ocean breeze blowing through the whole camper.
Wow.
And we sleep right there on the back. We got little beds back there. And in 3 days, I'm 20 years younger. I'm like out there throwing my grandson in the surf and wrestling around on the beach. And it's just that profound. And I tell people, this is called a work and play toy hauler made by Forest River. Now, they have these kind of things that are not made in the fashion that mine is in, but this one has got, it's very utilitarian, like I say. It doesn't have carpet, and it's got this molded aluminum top on it, I think, so it can't get moldy. And I've seen them used for $7,000 or $8,000. And so when your life is at stake, you can do it. You know, you can go borrow it. If you got to save your life, go borrow $7,000 and swap your car for a pickup truck to haul it and go to the beach.
Yeah, you know, I think what a lot of people, you know, say is, oh, you know, kind of like what you were saying before is, well, my home is, you know, I don't have $100,000 to fix my home, or I don't have this or that. But, you know, I think it gets into just really thinking creatively and thinking, like you just said, Doc, you know, if your life is worth it, then you'll figure out a way. You'll get creative, and you'll figure out a way to make these things happen.
Sorry, I was messing with my head. Somebody just texted me and said, I'm trying to listen to the Extreme Radio Show, but I can't find it.
Oh, no.
No.
So at least you're taping it.
Yeah, we're taping it.
They'll get it.
www.extremehealthradio.com.
And then / and make sure to do / live on there if he wants to listen live.
Okay. Well, we're probably too late for that.
Yeah, we're almost wrapping up here. But hey,
at least she can listen to it.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, just in closing, I know last time we were talking, I'm not sure if this was on the air or off the air last time, but you were talking about these fecal implants, because earlier in this conversation we were talking about the mold and the relationship to the beneficial bacteria in our body. Has there been any advances in the fecal transplant arena these days or lately?
Pardon me, I got hung up here again. It appears that I was talking to a gastroenterologist last week, and he says that they're starting to loosen up on the, it was only for Clostridia difficiles or difficiles, depending on if you're from Europe. And it looks like now that they're kind of loosening it up and letting the GI dyes do it for more broad spectrum uses. And I understand now that they actually have created a fecal transplant donor base where they're, after doing all these stool studies, they found there's certain people that have a really good mix of flora and they don't have parasites. And so they got them to donate a bunch of stools and they flash freeze dry them.
Really?
And that was one of the biggest problems, is trying to find a healthy donor. Good Lord. I mean, good luck with that.
Yeah, I bet.
So now they've screened them. They've done stool tests to make sure that they don't have any bad stuff wrong with them. And so now a GI doc for $250 can order in this freeze-dried stool, and I think it's fairly new.
Now, is that something, Doc? I'm curious about this because, the gut flora is so important in people and their health. And now, is this something, do you think, or do you foresee being possible where people can do this as a maintenance kind of thing, where they're not really that sick, but they want to, get to that top level of health? Do you think people can do that?
Well, one thing I would recommend 2 books that really helped understand this, and one of them is by Justin. Can you believe that, Justin?
I love the name.
Whoa, like it already.
Sonnenberg, Sonnenenburg.
Okay.
And that's called The Good Gut. And that one is readily available. And that's kind of the early work on the microbiome. And then there's a new book out by Dr. Perlmutter, Perlmutter. It is called Brain Maker. And he actually gives you a protocol how to help normalize the GI tract flora. And he's a GI guy that made the mental leap. Finally, after 20 years of screaming at the top of our lungs that neurological diseases are caused by gut issues, and he did it, and he's really written a wonderful book. Highly recommended. I got the audio.
Okay.
I got the EBOOK. I got the printed book. So wherever I'm at, I've got it on my iPad, and I listen to it on my way back and forth to Mexico for a couple of weeks. And that, I think, is a good starter place for anyone for more of the maintenance issue. Because if you get a GI guy to do it, he's going to have some kind of justification.
Right.
They can't. And it's really not a big issue, but in the world of FDA, and they're looking at this like, but you could get what if you got herpes virus or hepatitis or AIDS or something from this donor stool? Well, that's why you screen them, and preferably have kids that are 10, 11, 12 years old that are not sexually active.
Right.
And screen the stools. But I doubt that you're going to find anybody that's going to do it for maintenance, but I have actually been looking for a GI doc in Panama that where they don't have a problem with fecal transplant, and we're going to hopefully before January, February, we're going to have a partnership with a clinic in Panama, near Panama City. So you got really great flights. I mean, it's a 2.5 hour flight out of San Diego, and it should be fairly inexpensive. And we're going to start screening potential donors, mostly kids that are 8 to 12 years old.
Okay.
And check them for parasites and roundworms, and things like that. And
right.
And we're going to have to pay them to maintain a healthy diet. And if they did have a parasite, we'd have to treat the parasite and then retest them. And it can be very expensive to keep a donor stool pool that at any time, you can say, okay, come down at 10 o'clock a.m., we're going to do a procedure. And you got to have quite a few of them because they can't just all come down any one time, and you've got to have to routinely screen them.
Right.
You're talking $500 every time you send a stool off. So we're working on that, and I think it's going to work out very well because so many people need a redo. They need a reboot.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was thinking as well. I was thinking, that would just be an amazing thing to do. I'm sure you'd feel great afterwards.
Well, the ones that I've observed, it's absolutely miraculous. And I had a case, somebody that I had worked with who we kind of got to a point where the guy just wasn't getting much better, and I and another doctor that was seeing him recommended that he do a stool transplant, and so he said, well, I'll just have to do it myself. So he talks his 10-year-old nephew into, he says, look, I'm going to do a scientific experiment and I need a stool, so poop in this bucket. So he gets him to do it, cons him into a stool in a plastic bucket. And then he did an enema, washed everything out, and slurries up this stool, filters it through a tea strainer, gets a lot of the fiber out, and then puts it in an enema bag with 220 mLs of saline. Literally just put it in the blender. And by the way, don't use that blender for your smoothie.
Oh my goodness.
Next day.
Hey Doc, really quickly, you're cutting out really, really bad. Can I call you and call you right back? Because I want to hear this.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
That was bizarre.
Yeah, this happens. This happened the other day, or this happens quite a bit with Daniel Vitalis. Remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
I don't know what's going on there, but something happens at the end of the shows where maybe Skype just kind of bombs out or something. But we're going to try to call him right back.
I want to know what's up with the poop bucket.
I know, me too. Okay, here we go. We're going to try him again.
Hello.
Okay,
much better.
Much better. For some reason,
sounds a lot better.
Skype just goes kaput on us here. But okay, so you were talking about putting this poop in the blender?
Yeah. So there is actually an EBOOK that's called fecal transplant. It's FMT, I think.
FMT. Okay.
Yeah, and you should be able to find Google fecal transplant book or something like that.
Okay.
FMT is, I think, what you call it. Fecal something transplant. And he tells you how to do it at home. And so my guy, he gets 120 mLs of saline, puts a stool in a blender, blends it up real good. Just a whip, one little boom. You don't want to oxidize it. Just hit the button one time, turn it off, then pour it through a tea strainer, and then you just put it in an enema bag. After doing an enema, you want to wash everything out so you got room for it, and then infused it slowly because you don't want to expel it, you want to retain it. And then he got on his back machine and inverted himself so it flowed backwards.
Oh my!
For about 10 minutes, and then actually that was my idea. I told him, you want to get on your back machine, turn upside down, and then after you've been up, not totally upside down, but at a Trendelenburg position for maybe 10 minutes, then jump down and lay on your right side, so that fluid will move back toward the cecum.
Okay.
And so he reports back for 3 days. His chronic fatigue's gone. He feels like $1,000,000. But he said after 4 or 5 days, he started reverting. And he said, why? Why this? Man, I felt so great. And I said, well, if you look at Dr. Borody in Australia, he is the fecal transplant king of the world. He's done them for many, many years.
How do you spell his last name?
Borody, Borody, I believe. Okay. If you'll type in Dr. Borody, Australia /fecal transplant, you'll find his website.
It'll come up. Okay.
And so he will give oral vancomycin. Vancomycin is not absorbed. That's why they don't give it. If you're have septicemia, they do vancomycin intravenously because it's not absorbed at all in the gut.
Okay.
And for this case, that's perfect because you want to wipe everything out you can, and he'll usually also give something like Flagyl or non-absorbable rifampin, which is called Xifaxan.
Okay.
That's not absorbed either. So he's basically wiping everything out, so when he goes back in with this stool transplant, there's no competition, so that the new flora actually have a chance to outpopulate the previous inhabitants.
Wow, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, so it's not going to work long term if you don't do that. Now, there was a friend, I call him a friend, we hadn't talked much, but really sweet guy up in Oregon that is a naturopathic physician. He was doing fecal transplants in a clinical setting until the FDA told him he could not anymore, at least temporarily till they got through this is it safe kind of thing. And there's reasonable justification for that. I'm not dissing the FDA there because if it's done properly, it's very safe. In fact, I don't know there's ever been a reported side effect. Of course, anybody who's doing it is doing stool specimens and making sure they do blood work and that the patient doesn't have AIDS or something like that. The donor, I mean. But he was doing it with the enema kit, and he would do it 10 days in a row.
Wow.
And his feeling was, and he had pretty good success, that if you just kept implanting it, concentrated it in the rectal area and the descending colon, that eventually they would colonize there very aggressively, and they would just start growing backwards up the canal back toward the cecum. Obviously not as good as GI doc wiping everything out and then going up with a scope and a long rubber tube and actually visualizing the tube in the cecum. And then what they take is a big old 250 ml syringe, put the slurry stool in it, and they just push all of it right there in the cecum where it needs to be. And so that's why it's so highly effective. And if you study Borody's work, I hope I don't mangle this, but I think with Clostridia difficile, which kills 1,000 people a day in America, I believe is the statistic, watery diarrhea for years on end. I mean, they just, it can kill them. And so I think it was 92 or 3% effective with one transplant. And if that didn't hold, if they did 2 of them, it was in the high 98% effective. He also reversed Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis routinely. And I don't know how routinely, but he also reported on seeing rheumatoid arthritis and an MS patient and a Parkinson's patient revert also. Now, I don't know how many Parkinson's. It may be 1 out of 50. But there was a case of each that I read responded to fecal transplant. Now, was it the repopulating the flora, or was it the 10 days of vancomycin, flagyl, and or the other antibiotic that maybe killed off a pathogen in the gut, and it just appeared that the fecal transplant helped? I believe it is the latter. I think that you did kill off either a pathogen or an overgrowth of commensal flora, and to replace that with a balanced flora. So the balance is everything. Very important. And I think if you read Sonnenberg's book, they mention a study where they took lean mice and obese mice, and they swapped their stools. And the obese mice became lean, and the lean mice became obese.
No way.
My goodness.
Yeah, and now they've actually done that in human studies and finding
crazy.
Similar effects. And what happens is, now that we've got the microbiome and the GI done, a lot of it, of course, nobody knows what it all means, but they do know this. There's a preponderance toward Firmicutes versus Bacteroides in people who are overweight.
Wow.
And the ironic thing is that the Firmicutes, which should be less than 10%, and Bacteroides should be 90% approximately, if I read the study right, the Firmicutes are extremely efficient at digesting soluble fibers.
Okay.
Where the Bacteroides are not. Well, if I digest food fibers, what is the end result? They're mucopolysaccharides, or cellulose, which is in OSE indicates a sugar.
Okay.
So if you digest them, you're liberating sugar. So if you are used to eating a lot of high fructose corn syrup and corn and potatoes, you've altered your microbiome in favor of Firmicutes. And so you've got to reverse that. And, fecal transplant would be ideal, get it all done within one day. Otherwise, in the Brain Maker, Dr. Perlmutter tells you how to kind of do that at home with taking certain prebiotics that tend to feed the Bacteroides, and then which Bacteroides strains to use. We use Allergy Research Group's Bifidobacteria group, which has all 5 of the ones that Dr. Perlmutter recommends.
Interesting.
And so you can change your flora. I think that some people really are going to have to. In Mexico, we do this sometimes when we need to affect the microbiome, and it's taking too long because the stomach acid kills off too many of your new bugs. We'll actually put them on an H2 blocker like omeprazole for 5 days or so. Okay. And then just have them take massive quantities of the probiotics during that time. And then, but we still have them take betaine when they eat their meals. So you're not going without stomach acid while you're eating, but you are otherwise. So, and just for like 4 or 5 days, just long enough to get a big wad of living good guys through the stomach into the bowel. And we've actually even done the same thing with people. We'll use the non-absorbable rifampin and flagyl, wipe out as much of the microbiome as we can, and then we'll do the 4 or 5 days of omeprazole and have them take heroic amounts of the Bacteroides family and repopulate and try to push the microbiome back to some balance.
Hey, so when is your clinic? You said you're going to be trying to work with somebody in
Panama.
In Panama. Yeah, when is that going to happen?
I'm hoping we can get that done by January, February.
Ooh, nice.
There's a lot of groundwork that has to be done in finding a repertoire of healthy, suitable stool donors.
Right.
And we have to work out the economics because we're probably going to have to pay for them to eat a gluten-free diet.
Oh, I see.
And also to do the stool testing. And if we have to go through 50 kids, it would probably cost $500 a kid.
Yeah.
Just to prove that they're a donor or not. And if maybe everything looks good except they've got ascaris worms, which 25% of the world's population does, well, that's easily fixed. Just give them mebendazole, which is $5 a box in Panama, and give that to them for a couple of months, every other week or two. And then we got to retest them. That's another $500. And hopefully they're clear, and then they're a viable donor.
Wow, I could see how that could add up.
So it can be
really
quite expensive, and then you got a GI doctor who aren't cheap, and the facility, and just a little technical apparatus, and so it sounds simple, but it can be quite expensive to find your donors and then feed them and have them and pay them to eat certain things, because if they start eating junk food, then they're going to mess up their microbiome, and then we don't want them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and we've got the Panamanian Ministry of Health has got to sign off on it, and
okay.
No, it's a little bit of challenge there, but not insurmountable.
Yeah.
The groundwork's fine. It's just getting the approval from the through the Panamanian medical.
Well, I want to let everybody know that they can reach you at Hope Wellness. What's the best website? Hope Wellness Center or hopewellness.com?
Hopewellness.com
Hope Wellness
is our domestic site.
Okay. That's the one that's
although the video is not, we're not set up to fulfill the video that way, but it's best that they just call the office at area code 325 947 5266 and just say we're Texas time, so we're 2 hours ahead of California, an hour behind Florida.
Okay.
And the rest of the world that's listening, just leave a message. Leave a message and an email, particularly people listening in Korea and Japan and all. They better to do it by email. And the email for us is info@hopewellness.com.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
info@hopewellness.com.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm going to go run right out after this show and buy a Blu-ray because I want to see this 12-hour DVD. But the other DVDs that you have too are just so great. The lectures that you did with the whole alimentary canal and how to heal your gut and all that. The whole presentation.
Be sure if you call. There's two different sets. There's the new one, which is the 12-hour everything thing. But then we have one that's specifically on the gut, stomach acid, digestive enzymes, parasites, the food to eat, why to eat, grain-free. And that's the 4-hour video that's on GI. And just tell the office you want the long new one or the older one, which is the 4-hour GI video. And of course, I need both of them, right? And the book too, the Road to Health book, which is the diet that we recommend.
Was that bio old? Are you working on a book right now, or is that not right?
Yeah, well, we're trying to do. Laura Schroeder, who is the journalist that wrote the Road to Health book, and I assisted her in parts of it, but we took an old diet that was really antique and brought it into America where you can buy things at the grocery store that we understand what they are, because it was an old European book that was hard to follow. So we brought it up to date, and Laura just did an amazing job with making meal plans. It's scheduled in 3-month increments. Initially, it's the most restrictive for 3 months, and then at 4th month, it gets less restrictive. At the 7th month, even less restrictive. But it's very methodical. We're trying to heal the gut and avoid the foods that you cannot digest once your gut becomes degenerative. Mm-hmm. It's not that eating amaranth or quinoa or a sweet potato is bad. It's just that once your gut's degenerative, you cannot digest the sugars. So it's a healing diet.
Okay.
And then, of course, in the I think it's in the new video, but it's on our website, hopewellness.com. If they'll click on info, scroll down to my smoothie recipe. Mm-hmm. That smoothie recipe is very unique. It's not a smoothie for fun. It's smoothie with the ingredients that heal the gut, stabilize blood sugar. It's anti-inflammatory, and some of the components are a little rare. They can order them from the phone number I gave. But that is a part of the healing of the gut and stabilizing the blood sugar, which really helps the hormones and the fatigue and the difficulty in sleeping through the night. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all hooked to the gut and digestion and food allergies or the lack of ability to digest food, because if you don't digest, your blood sugar's dropping out, mm-hmm. and you're going to wake up at 3 a.m.
Right.
Because you're dying.
Yeah, I understand.
Your adrenal glands are saying, okay, we better pump out some cortisol and epinephrine to rescue you from your blood sugar that's in the 40s, mm-hmm. so you can wake up tomorrow.
Well, which is always a good thing, so you can go naked camping at the beach.
So you can go naked driving to the beach.
What I've taken away from this today, Dr. Hines, is when you have a female problem, shoot some yogurt up.
Yep.
Naked camping on the beach and put your poop in a blender.
There you go. There's a girl that's a bullet point kind of girl.
To summarize this.
To summarize, naked, driving to the beach, put your poop in a bucket and drink the smoothie.
I love it. I love it.
I'm totally kidding.
The title of the new book will be Naked
and Not Afraid.
Naked and Not Afraid.
Naked and Not Afraid.
That's funny. Well, thank you, Doc, for spending some time with us today, and for all the work that you do. And we're going to get that Blu-ray so we can check out the DVD. But I just want to thank you for your work and your time and everything you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. It's a great privilege for me and a pleasure to see people who had no hope. Just, send an email or a testimonial back and say, I watched your video. I couldn't get out of bed. I hurt all over. I had no energy. My gut hurt. And now I'm sleeping great. I'm jogging 5 miles a day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You changed my life. I mean, you just can't get that kind of emotional lift then when you see those kind of reports come back. And
oh, gosh. It's life-changing.
Life-changing, yeah. And just validates my life that I'm actually doing something worthwhile.
That's so great.
And you are, and your clinic is named perfectly, because I think if people have hope, then they have everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Doc. What are you going to do today? Are you going to be seeing patients, or what do you got going on?
No, I'm off today. We're getting ready to go to Colorado on vacation.
Oh, nice.
My sugar baby, Sissy. She is the standard by which other women judge themselves.
I love
my
it.
smoking hot babe. We go on our annual anniversary trip to the mountains of Colorado and sit in the hot springs in Ouray, Colorado.
Oh, nice. Man,
look at the beautiful snow-capped peaks and eat things that we're not supposed to.
But you know how to heal yourself afterwards.
Yeah, it's what you do every day that matters.
That's
When
right.
is your anniversary?
Next Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, congrats.
Pretty quick, next couple days.
Wow. Congratulations.
We always try to go right after the colors start to change, but before it freezes and all the leaves fall off. And so you get the beautiful yellow glowing aspens and the green evergreens and the white mountain peaks. And, it's eye candy.
I love it.
It's so sweet. I get eye diabetes.
Only you would come up with that.
I love it. Well, thanks, Doc. So it's hopewellness.com or hopewellnesscenter.com, and people can find out more about your work and check out your DVDs, call your clinic, and come and see you and get evaluations and work with you directly in both your clinics, right?
Yeah. The Hope Wellness Center is Mexico. HopeWellness.com is our domestic site. We don't do any kind of treatments in the U.S. It's all done in Mexico, just, a mile across the border. But they are different sites. And Laura Schroeder, the Road to Health book, she is now working on converting that GI video into a book.
Okay.
And eventually this extremely long video series.
Oh my goodness, that would be a
maybe a series of books.
Yeah,
be like Lord of the Rings, the never-ending.
I'm working on a new video, probably in February, a big seminar. We'll probably do it in San Antonio on cancer, and in our opinion, how you can minimize your risk of getting cancer, but also, if you even think you might have cancer, what do you do before you make some bad mistake? Like, should you get a biopsy or not? And should I do a scan, or what to do to really help yourself have the best chance of making it through a cancer diagnosis? And there are so many things that can be done. And the decision you make early on are life or death down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, the order in which you get treatment is very, very important. And, I'm glad that you're putting out this work, because that's sort of the same thing as what we're doing, is just we want to let people know there's options. We want to let people know that there's not just one game in town when it comes to your health and to your healing. And people can make educated decisions and have extremely viable options that work. It's amazing to me that in 2015, a lot of people still don't know about the fact that these things exist. So,
we've got we work pretty closely with a number of conventional oncologists, who have a heart for and conviction that an integrative approach is the best thing. And we've got people that are taking one little chemo pill a day, and we're doing all the nutritional stuff and our IVs. And, their 4 or 5 centimeter lung tumor is just resolving quite nicely. They don't feel sick. They don't feel bad. You never even know they're taking chemo.
Wow.
It's just there is a smart way to integrate. And that's what we're going to really focus on, is giving people that they can make wise decisions and hopefully not do something that they'll regret. And that doesn't mean not taking chemo. It means if you're going to do chemo, know which one's going to work in advance, know how to protect yourself, maybe do divided doses, or maybe do little teeny doses like insulin potentiated chemo, and then support yourself like crazy with the botanicals, with the mushrooms, with the gut healing supporting things, and IV vitamin C and stuff like that. I think it's going to be a wonderful tool for people to kind of, have a chance of migrating their way through the maze.
Well, that's so cool. I think it's important for people to know that even if you go just a regular chemo route, there's different ways of doing it. It's not just has to be done one way. So, well, thanks for spending some time. If you're ever in the San Diego area, let us know and we'll hang out and have some fun.
Okay, now if I come to San Diego, I understand that you got some people that are really good at making organic meals. So if you like, you could put out a little email and say, Steve's coming to town. Let's have a big party. Who wants to cook all this really good, healthy stuff? And of course, some organic vino.
I love it. Huh? I love it. We could do that. We can do that.
Can you work that up for me?
We'll have a little party. Yeah.
Okay, consider it done. Of course. I'll book my flight.
I love it.
You are welcome here anytime.
Anytime.
All right, guys. Enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Steve. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right. So that was the show. It's Dr. Steve Hines. Do you have to leave? You got to leave pretty soon?
I do have to leave in a minute.
Okay.
Love that guy.
We'll wrap it up here pretty soon, but for all the people in the chat room, HopeWellness.com is Steve's site. I really like what he's just such an interesting guy, and I like what he was saying about mixing chemotherapy with regular treatment, the low dose chemo and things like that.
I think there's a time for that to be used, and I think that the integrative approach can be a really good thing. I'm really drawn just to anything that's balance of anything.
What do you think about the poop in the blender?
I think that's absolutely disgusting, and I think I would do it, but I would have a separate blender that would never be used for anything else, along with a tea strainer, because that could get very ugly very fast.
I know.
Yuck.
Tea strainer? What is that about?
I don't even want to talk about it. It's just too gross.
That is so gross.
I thought he was going to say a mesh bag, and that grossed me out even more. Yeah. I'm like, no way on God's green earth is that not hazardous material.
I know, right? Yeah, bizarre, huh? Well, like we were saying before, if you are sick and if you are, you do what you got to do, and it's sometimes that kind of stuff is taking extreme measures, but hopefully you never get to that point, and hopefully you can take care of yourself. I'm interested to see, because we had Sheila Hemphill on the show, and I'm interested to get a Blu-ray and see what she had to say again about the smart meters and the electromagnetic field radiation.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
something we're still struggling with, that we're trying to slowly X out of our life, but we're doing it in a way that we can still live in the real world. And
yes.
Yeah, man. Extreme Health Radio, where no stone is left unturned.
I know, right?
Yeah, we try to cover it all. Mm-hmm. The good, the bad, the ugly, and then just plain disgusting.
And the poop in the blender in between.
And the poop in the blender in between. Yuck.
I know, right?
Yeah.
All right, so wrapping up the show, I just want to let everyone know, thank you very much for watching or listening to the show. I really appreciate it. If you guys would like to support us, there's lots of different ways to do that. I want to thank all you guys for supporting us on Amazon, for bookmarking our Amazon link, for all you patrons out there who are supporting us on Patreon.
All you patrons?
Patrons.
That's good.
I almost said Patreons.
Well, I can see why. Patreons, right?
Patrons.
New name.
But
Patreons.
But thank you guys for seriously supporting us that way, because that's a huge way, and you can donate 25 cents a show, for $1 a month, and if all of you guys did that would really help. And thank you for supporting us in our store as well. Our store has got lots of great products on there, and we appreciate that, and for sharing the shows on Facebook, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's all good?
It's all good. It's my favorite season.
I know, right?
New shows about staying healthy and well going into the fall and winter. And we have a good lineup coming up.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We love it.
Anybody to speak of, or are we keeping that secret?
Keeping it secret. We're working on some in-studio guests here, so that'll be a lot of fun, I think. And
we sent out you sent out a great newsletter this morning.
That's true.
Talking about our new projects going on.
That's true. That's true. We're going to be moving towards live video, or maybe live. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out if it'll be live. But on YouTube, we'll do podcast versions of our show. So
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Video versions.
So thank you for joining us. This was episode 397. If you want to grab the show notes, you can do that at extremehealthradio.com/397. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for passing the show on to your friends. That's a huge help, too. Thank you for sharing our content on Facebook. So we really appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.
Hey, everybody. This is Josie, Justin's mum. Don't tell him, but I know he would absolutely be really happy if you would sign up to his free weekly newsletter. And don't forget to share this with all your friends. This is the buzzing bumblebee signing off.
That was so good.
Hello.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any